The Pan American Health Organization commenting on large gatherings in the Bahamas. The church is ready to let go of COVID-19 guidelines, and the Minister of Health gives an update on the nursing shortage. Good evening, everyone. I'm Tyler Simonet with your JCN News for this Wednesday, February 9th. The Pan American Health Organization weighing in on large hotels in the Bahamas having social gatherings, including concerts, despite the Ministry of Health and Wellness not giving approval for them to happen. Director of Health Emergencies at PAHO, Dr. Ciro Ugarte, praised the country's process of giving or not giving the green light for such gatherings.
We are aware that in the Bahamas there is a good process to approve large concerts and gatherings. The organizers request approval from the Ministry of Health, including all the plans that they have, and the Ministry of Health provides advice and guidance to the organizers to implement the proper measures. And if those measures are well established in order to reduce the transmission in those gatherings, the Ministry of Health may approve those events. But also we are aware that some organizers decide not to request the Ministry of Health, and they decide to organize those events.
Now, yesterday, just before the weekly cabinet meeting, Minister of Health and Wellness, Dr. Michael Darville, noted that his ministry can only give policies, guidelines, or approval for large events. It is then up to the Ministry of National Security to enforce those policies. Dr. Ugarte also commented on the enforcement of these COVID-19 policies.
In those situations, we saw that the Ministry of Health itself, according with other authorities, went to those events and even had to stop the public from attending such events. So that is a very good policy. The organizers of gatherings of public events not only will show a responsibility when they request authorization, but also they benefit from the advice of the Ministry of Health. In that regard, everybody wins. So we encourage the organizers of such events to be fully aware of the public health measures in place at the current situation in the current location, and follow always the public health measures established by the country.
These comments come off the heels of the Ministry of Health denying approval twice for the concert with popular dancehall artist Dex the Daps, which was slated to happen this Friday on Carnival grounds. When asked why this concert was not given approval, while concerts on hotel grounds still happen, Dr. Darville said that health officials have spoken to all hotel property owners to say that they do not approve of any large gathering, whether it's on hotel grounds or not. As the COVID-19 fight continues here in the country, one of the biggest challenges has been the country's healthcare system, which has faced staff shortages. On Tuesday, just before the weekly cabinet meeting, Health and Wellness Minister Dr. Michael Darville updated the media on healthcare workers that may still be out of the system due to COVID exposure, while also providing more insight into the more than 50 Cuban nurses who were brought into the system to fill the gap.
Well, the exact numbers of how many are in quarantine or isolation, it fluctuates on a daily basis. That I cannot report right now. The Cuban nurses are in their positions. There has been some report that there may be a slight language barrier, but I anticipate from the experience in Jamaica and other parts of the Caribbean, they will learn very quickly. They're qualified, they're filling the gaps, and that's what we need at this particular time, particularly with the pandemic still not completely out of the way as yet.
Dr. Darville also advising that nursing students at the University of the Bahamas who recently took the necessary examinations have passed, adding that his ministry is working to get them in the system as soon as possible.
It's my understanding that there's about 100 nurses that are in the system. We will expect more. But I would like to focus on Bahamian nurses. We are now looking at nurses in retirement, those who are physically in good condition, who are prepared to come back for a 1 or maybe 2-year contract to join in, because our nurses are being recruited from all over the world, particularly Canada and the United States. And so when we develop a void, we must look internally in the country, and if we can't find it internally, then we must go outside. But we must ensure that the healthcare service is maintained and Bahamians have access to a decent quality healthcare service.
Minister Darville adds that as the country develops voids within the healthcare system, health officials have to go internal to fill those voids, and if it can't be found here, then they must go outside for both doctors and nurse alike. I have long been worried about Bay Street. These are the words of Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Tourism, Investments and Aviation Chester Cooper just before the weekly cabinet meeting. Minister Cooper was responding to questions regarding concerns about downtown Nassau and how its appearance will affect tourism.
Beginning conversations already with the downtown partnership to see what we can do. Any closure on Bay Street is bad for Bay Street. We need Bay Street open. We need it vibrant. Our guests are calling for more activity, more restaurants, more nightclubs, more things to do. We need to roll out a clear vision for Bay Street, putting behind it our influence and our resources, and that is what we will do. East of Bay Street is frankly troubling. The buildings are dilapidated, the owners are absent, and this cannot continue in the heart of our downtown. There has to be a solution.
Minister Cooper noted he'll be meeting shortly with the ownership group from the downtown area, along with the downtown partnership to resolve these issues. His comments come off the heels of the impending closure of the British Colonial Hotel. Here's an update on that.
The developers, the owners of the property, are continuing their work in terms of finding a new flag and a new brand. So no update since last week. They're pressing forward. They're committed to the Bahamas. They're committed to Bay Street, and they're committed to finding a solution.
The Hilton is set to close its doors indefinitely in just a few days on February 15th. The hotel's owner, China Construction America, does not have a management company in place and is therefore facing challenges in keeping the property open.
The developer who has been hit by COVID, along with all of the other properties across the country, they've had now an issue with their brand, and now they need to find a new brand. I think it's a fairly simple commercial matter. We're working in partnership with them. We're confident that the matter is going to be resolved on a commercial basis. Government has no ownership in this property. The government is interested in seeing a resolution to enhance Bay Street, to enhance the tourism product, and of course for the employment of all of the people who may have been impacted as a result.
Churches are ready to drop restrictions as daily COVID-19 positive cases trend downward. Bahamas Christian Council President Bishop Delton Fernander shared with reporters on Wednesday that in the coming days, changes will come about for the churches as it relates to COVID-19 guidelines.
I think we will hear something about that this week. We have been in communication with the same, and we're only waiting for that response. And I believe that the state is minded. I don't want to speak for them, but I believe by the end of this week, we should hear something, if not from me, but from the Minister of Health and his department. Because of the positive change, we could now move away from the 25%.
Now, under the Health Services COVID-19 Rules 2021, church or any place of religious instruction or worship may conduct services in alignment with protocols established by the BCC and approved by the Ministry of Health and Wellness. The rules also speaks to funeral services which can't take place without the presence of the remains or casket inside the church. Here's what the BCC chief had to say about restrictions fading away for funerals.
Well, we are going to work through that. I think what we would like to see is maybe a few months. I think is maybe 2 months is the number you look for the hour to be reduced. And if it's holding for 2 months, in January we were considering another number and removing some restrictions. I think we can honestly come to the table and negotiate that again if the rate stays the same for another 2 months.
Now reporters asked Bishop Fernander, what does the church have to do to get back to some sense of normalcy?
As you can see, churches provide an essential role in the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. The programs that are now being asked of the church requires more capacity to be made available. And if those capacities can be available safely, not only for worship, But us to do the social intervention that we do, we're going to need churches to be those kind of places where we could have people come in to receive what they're used to receiving in terms of social assistance.
For much of the pandemic, the church and government have struggled to find a balance between guidelines and having church services. Health officials are planning to decentralize vaccination sites and allow private physicians to have access to the COVID-19 vaccine. We learned this much from Health and Wellness Minister Dr. Michael Darwell. This comes as COVID-19 numbers continue to trend downward and as there is an attempt to reduce vaccine hesitancy in the country.
We all have more confidence in our personal physician rather than at a center. And so they will be a part of what we're trying to accomplish together.
Dr. Darwell adds that the ministry tried just about everything to incentivize vaccination against COVID-19, inclusive of monetary incentives. And that said, he adds that this is why they need to become more innovative. Thus, a memorandum of understanding with the private sector to assist with vaccination was born.
What we have experienced in the fourth wave is clear. The majority of people who were admitted to hospital who were moderately and severely ill as a result of COVID are directly those who are not vaccinated. And that is what we're seeing around the world. So I encourage every Bahamian to understand the importance of vaccination. Keeps you out of hospital and keeps you well. And we have to push harder. We expect the media to join us. We're doing many innovative things to try to convince Bahamians that you have to come forward. And we will continue to do so. And we also would like all private sector groups. We've had some good support from certain private sectors who have joined in with us, and they have done an excellent job at their own establishment. I believe if the private sector continue like this, we will be able to see even greater uptake with the vaccine, and that's the direction we want to go at the Ministry of Health and Welfare.
As of February 6, some 159,839 Bahamians and residents are fully vaccinated in country. You're watching JCN News. Stay with us.